Hello everyone, Gary here from timelineastrology.com. So this is an update on the economic situation, the markets, and the economy in general, and looking at the astrology now and moving forward and how that is playing out and how it may play out in the coming months. So there's one thing I want to draw your attention to, and that is in the previous video I made about potential for a stock market crash in October, November. I mean, I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop in a sense with that, but I did say, and I do believe that Saturn is playing such a pivotal role here in containing the situation and not allowing it to go crazy. And without Saturn here in Aquarius aspecting the planets in Aries, which are fundamentally driving the markets up and up, and we know what happens when things go up and up. They have to come down. So it's just a question of when they're going to come down, and that is Saturn's aspect enough to contain situations where it's a quote unquote soft landing, all of that. Now, what's happening here is interesting because I'm using the true node calculations and they haven't moved yet, and they won't move until the end of November, November 29th. And once they do, we'll have the nodes move signs and we'll take Rahu away from Jupiter. So the thing to say about this, first of all, is that Rahu and Jupiter in Aries, and this is why I thought, the potential was there for a stock market crash, was because the last time they were here together was in 1929. And I know that's a bit simplistic to say, okay, they're back again here in Aries, and Venus is about to meet with Ketu by the end of November. Is again the other shoe about to drop? I do definitely think there's a lot of strange things going on with the economy and the markets. But again, is Saturn going to keep it together? Maybe so. But once Rahu gets away from Jupiter, and it only begins by the end of November, remember, so this is now for the next year and a half. Rahu is in Pisces, Jupiter's sign, aspecting Jupiter along with Saturn. It kind of takes away the sort of artificial stimulus. It kind of takes away the sort of fake boom, in a sense. Rahu and Jupiter conjoined in Aries has been essentially what's driving the AI tech revolution, really, and the stock market, going up and up with those 7 key players. If you take Rahu out of the equation, it's almost like you remove sugar from your diet, and there's going to be a bit of a crash initially. You're just going to feel like, okay, that kind of false stimulus or whatever, that fake whatever has been taken away. So that's probably what it's going to feel like from now on, because now what you got is Rahu again aspecting Jupiter, so which you might say, well, that's going to keep things a bit kind of obscure in a way, yes. But Saturn now is going to aspect Jupiter, which is no longer propped up by this sugar high of Rahu, essentially. So what it means is that Jupiter is going to be affected, and again, hopefully contained in a way, and that it will be a soft landing and there won't be a major crash. But it does look like there's going to be now the other issue as opposed to inflation and like stock markets going crazy. We're going to see like more deflationary sort of cycle and things kind of coming down to earth, and maybe with a thud. This is the thing to be mindful of with these aspects. And again, especially by the end of November, because Ketu is conjoined Venus on the other side. So that's another thing to be a bit worried about. This is the exact conjunction here by the end of November. So yeah, I mean, as the nodes move, it's probably not enough to say that it's going to happen on the day, but as the nodes move on the 29th of November, Ketu conjoins Venus. Is it? Yeah, it's a potential jolt because let's face it, it only takes a day. It only takes a day of panic in the markets to kind of things to spiral. But I'm just talking about the longer term implications here of Rahu now in Pisces aspecting Jupiter, with Saturn continuing to aspect Jupiter until May 1st, 2024. So that's the thing. I think it just seems like it's going to be a bit of a downer in terms of the economy. But what's going to happen then, of course, is that by May, we have, this is the 1st of May, Jupiter moves into Taurus. And we have Saturn no longer strongly aspecting Jupiter. And it's the first time since 2019, actually, that Jupiter is not either moving into debilitation, conjoined Saturn, conjoined Pluto, conjoined Rahu, or aspected by Rahu or Saturn. You know, it's like one thing after another since 2019 with Jupiter. So that's a better thing overall. I would say it's a more hopeful situation. And because Jupiter now is moving in Taurus, and that's a whole other when we get into Uranus joining it in the summer as well in June. But let me just park that for a minute. But Jupiter moving towards its sign of exaltation by 2026 to Cancer, although opposite Pluto, that's a whole other shakeup. But it does seem more hopeful. You know, it's not like a 2008 situation where we had Jupiter conjoined in Capricorn in its debilitation sign, right? 2020 was even more so because it went into Capricorn, conjoined Pluto and Saturn. So 2020 was a major issue. But 2008, you know, Jupiter in Capricorn, 12 years later, Jupiter in Capricorn. Jupiter in Capricorn is where growth is stunted. It's like Jupiter is growth. That's why we relate it to the economy, because it represents growth in all aspects of life. And every 12 years it goes into Capricorn. So the next time it's not going to go into Capricorn until 2032. Now, 2032 is going to be a major issue, of course, because it's going to be, again, Jupiter conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, while Saturn is in Taurus, in the other Earth sign, conjunct Ketu, which at this time is in Virgo, the other Earth sign, for the next year and a half. When the Earth signs are impacted in any way by these challenging planets in a way, because Saturn, Pluto, and Ketu, if there's anything they have in common, it's that they remove things. And ideally, they make us live a simpler life. But, you know, they tend to, in economic terms, remove things to the point where, you know, very basics are challenged. So that's worrisome in terms of the 2030s, 2030 to 2032. I think that whole period there is a challenge there in terms of the economy and because of wars and all of that. But right now, Ketu is in Virgo. Pluto is in Capricorn. And now Rahu, again, is taking the stimulus out of the sign Aries with Jupiter. And Jupiter doesn't move into Taurus until May 1st. So from the end of November until next summer, despite what, you know, more hopeful aspects come in next summer, I think that it could be quite a downturn. Let me put it that way. So looking forward though, because I don't want to like, you know, labor on that and don't want to be too much of a downer. The thing with Jupiter and Taurus is that on its own, it might say, and in a square to Saturn, by the way, at this point, and that's important in and of itself, because of course, Saturn and Jupiter conjoined in 2020. That's the other key thing. And now they're moving into their first square. So this kind of challenge to what happened in 2020 in a way, and the economic challenge and the boom bust situations that Saturn and Jupiter can show often or always. But if it were Jupiter on its own, we could just talk about that as a very kind of straightforward storyline of boom bust. And, you know, we need to get real and we need to build this new economy, you know, and of course, Jupiter and Taurus is about that. The thing is, as we can see, it's not just Jupiter, it's Jupiter and Uranus. Uranus is moving into Taurus in June of 2024 after 84 years. And it's going to initially move back in briefly to Aries by the end of the year, but then move back in again 25 until, you know, for 7 years. So until 2032, you know, that's interesting that the whole period there leading up to 2032 is a massive changing period. But what this suggests is that Uranus and Taurus now, and initially propped up by Jupiter and Taurus for the first year of its transit, is showing massive changes in the economy because of literally in the monetary system and money, what money is. I mean, this suggests that, again, it's most likely expressed in a new digital currency. The EU are rolling out a digital currency. I think America is also, probably other countries. But basically, we're going to see a new currency develop at this time. And my thinking initially was that it was going to be brought in because of the challenges in the economy and a stock market crash potentially, or just, you know, an economic downturn or whatever. And I know, because by the way, I'm not an economist, so all of this advice has to be taken with a pinch of salt. I'm an astrologer. I'm not giving you financial advice. Also, be aware of that. Um, but the astrology kind of does scream big changes in monetary systems. Because look at what's happening. You've got the Jupiter and Uranus and all of that, and all the good guys, all the Venuses and the Mercuries and all of that in the summer of 2024 in Taurus. All of that looks good in one way. There's some more hopeful potential here. But again, it's a change in another way. What I'm thinking is that it's just this big new rollout of this new currency that some people, not everybody, but some people are going to embrace. And maybe with a stimulus package. I don't know. Who knows? But at the same time, you've got Ketu here in Virgo and Pluto in Capricorn. So Jupiter is aspecting Ketu and Pluto. That's also more positive from the summer of 2024 because Jupiter on Ketu especially is a more positive thing because it stops Ketu from being too destructive and removing too much. Because when we have these kinds of planets like Ketu and Virgo and Pluto and Capricorn, it removes too much of the basics and the structures and the systems that we need in terms of whether it's the economy or stock market or whatever it is. Government systems, like things that keep us feeling safe. Earth keeps us safe, like the earth is beneath your feet, right? So, but this suggests that Jupiter is bringing this sort of like more beneficial aspect here that could really help the situation. And again, that for me just screams the economy is going into a downturn in the beginning of the year. And there, from the summer especially, there's this rescue package or some sort of new digital currency or whatever else coming on stream while Saturn continues to transit in Aquarius, which itself shows the sort of, the humanist movement in a way, whether we call it that or not. And also, again, possibly even a universal income, like basic income. These kinds of things come with the Saturn Uranus transit. So it really kind of brings that to the fore. So that's one thing I would say. Of course, the whole thing about this and Rahu now in Pisces, Ketu in Virgo, is that Rahu is now conjoined Neptune and Saturn will join these planets by the beginning of 2025. We're heading into a very confusing time. And it could be that a lot of things are kind of just changing so much and it's changing so quickly, even more so than 2020, because things are happening more easily. Jupiter is in a trine to Pluto and Capricorn now, and it's kind of like really taking things off in a big way. But as these things are happening, we can just really struggle with maybe knowing what's true or not, and we can really, get confused here. And when there's a lot of confusion, I just think with anyone who's investing right now, anyone in the markets, anyone, you know, taking any risks at this time, yes, it could pay off, but in another way, because there's so many changes, you just don't know how the chips are going to fall right now. This astrology is just so fundamentally like shifting things. It's like it's really basics. The very basics are being changed right now into 24 and really beginning properly in 24. So anyway, that's my update on the economic situation. I did envision at this point by the end of November, and it still isn't the very end of November, so I don't know if something's about to drop, but I did envision a sort of more economic challenge at this point. And many economists and people who know what they're talking about in terms of the finances are suggesting that, again, the other shoe is about to drop. So just be mindful of that. Again, don't take financial advice from me. Take it from people who are professional and decide what you're going to do with your money. But again, I just feel like the astrology of 2024, money itself is going to change fundamentally. So, do with that what you will. If that in any way helps, I hope it does. If you have any questions, please feel free to post below. If you have any comments or thoughts about any of that, please post below. I'd love to hear your comments. And until next time.